Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Muscle for Life. I'm Mike Matthews. Thank you for joining me today. And hey, quickly, if you like what I'm doing here on the podcast, and if you want to make sure that you don't miss any new episodes, go ahead and quickly subscribe to the show in whatever app you are listening in, because then you will get notifications when the new episodes go live. I guess it depends on the app. Minimally, it will download every new episode and let you know there is a new episode to listen to, and it'll help boost the rankings of the show, which is great for me and great for others because then they can find it more easily. All right, so in today's episode, I interview a fun guest, somebody who I've had on the show before and who I like talking with, and that is Dan John. And we talk specifically about something he calls easy strength, which I came across in one of his books called Attempts. And we'll get into all of the details in this interview, but basically, easy strength is all about effective strength training with minimal time and minimal effort. Easy strength. You get in, you get out, and you don't have to push yourself nearly as hard as you may think. You do have to work hard, of course. You have to lift heavy weights and you have to have enough volume, but it is not your typical strength training program where you think of people squatting and deadlifting until they start bleeding from their eyeballs. Like, for example, in Dan John's easy strength method, you never even come close to muscular failure. Every set is supposed to feel easy. And you can train like that and gain strength and gain muscle. And of course, that is easier on your body. It's easier to recover from. It's easier on your joints. So you're gonna have less muscle soreness, less joint pain. It's interesting, and there's no question that it works. And it's something that I really haven't written or spoken about, this very sub-maximal approach to gaining muscle and strength. And yes, it does sound a little bit too good to be true, but it is backed by really decades of anecdotal evidence. I'm not sure how much scientific evidence there is specifically for this type of training, although I know there is a bit of literature on the usefulness of sub-max training, where again, you don't push close to muscular failure. And so that's what you're going to learn about in this episode. Also, if you like what I'm doing here on the podcast and elsewhere, definitely check out my health and fitness books, including the #1 best-selling weightlifting books for men and women in the world, Bigger, Leaner, Stronger, and Thinner, Leaner, Stronger, as well as the leading flexible dieting cookbook, The Shredded Chef. Now, these books have sold well over 1 million copies and have helped thousands of people build their best body ever, and you can find them on all major online retailers like Audible, Amazon, iTunes, Kobo, and Google Play, as well as in select Barnes & Noble stores. And I should also mention that you can get any of the audiobooks 100% free when you sign up for an Audible account. And this is a great way to make those pockets of downtime, like commuting, meal prepping, and cleaning, more interesting, entertaining, and productive. And so if you want to take Audible up on this offer, and if you want to get one of my audiobooks for free, just go to www.buylegion, that's B-U-Y, legion.com/audible, and sign up for your account. So again, if you appreciate my work and if you want to see more of it, and if you want to learn time-proven and evidence-based strategies for losing fat, building muscle, and getting healthy, and strategies that work for anyone and everyone, regardless of age or circumstances, please do consider picking up one of my best-selling books, Bigger, Leaner, Stronger for men, Thinner, Leaner, Stronger for women, and The Shredded Chef for my favorite fitness-friendly recipes. Hey, Dan, welcome back to my podcast.
Well, thanks so much. How are things?
Fine. Getting ready to move. I'm moving to Florida. That's
Okay.
That's happening in a month.
Be sure you bring some exotic animals that will breed rapidly. Okay. That seems to be part of what we guests do when they come to Florida. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe a new type of python or something like that.
Yes. That's what the state needs. Yes. Bring in raptors or something, Yeah.
Anyway, so I recently read your book, Attempts, and I liked it. I'm going to cover it. And I like to do book club episodes. I do it like once a month. I just talk about a book I like and share some takeaways and stuff. And there are quite a few essays in there and quite a few of your ideas that I liked, and to talk about all of them would take a long time. But I wanted to hone in on this easy strength programming, this easy strength approach to getting strong, because it's unique, and it's something that
It's funny to say that because it's not. It is the way people trained almost forever. It's interesting, I also have a master's in history, so you kind of get you get a little weird when you study history, up until bodybuilding took over what we call the steno symbol of weight training. This is how people trained.
Yeah.
And this is how, if you read George Hackenschmidt's the Way to Live, if you read the early works of Cerruti, it's Tom DeLorme who comes up with this idea of sets and reps during World War II. So the idea of sets and reps as we know them now is relatively new, and it really wasn't accepted. I've got they did a study on the Mr. Britain contest of 1951 or something like that. And the bulk of the guys at the Mr. Britain contest of 1951 were still training like strongmen. And the idea is that this idea of blitzing and terrorizing your triceps and all this post pumping iron stuff. By the way, I mean, I was at the premiere of Pumping Iron, so it's not like this isn't my first day. And certainly I have great respect for Arnold and his impact, but this idea that, what steno symbol is, it's when a phrase or word has a single meaning. If I say I'm lifting weights to my grandson, Danny, he'll show me a double bicep. Because if you talk about if you talk to a team of basketball players, we're going to start doing more weight training. They're going to start talking about how they'll look good on the beach. This is all relatively new in our field. The idea that you would go into you would practice getting stronger is the tradition. So easy strength I always explain it like, it's like learning how to type. I got a keyboard here. And if I just grabbed your finger and smashed it on A to failure, you wouldn't be a better typist. Your left pinky would be exhausted. And so the traditional way of getting strong is the same way you learned to type, play the guitar. It's practice over time. And then the nervous system adapts. And then after a while, those adaptions cause a stress in the body because the load is getting bigger. And then that beautiful phrase that Rob Wolf says, and then the hormonal cascade happens. And that's when you develop hypertrophy and those other qualities.
And that's just it's a different way of looking at exercise, right? As something as the practice, as another type of athletic activity, again, versus the bombing, blitzing of muscle groups. And
right.
One thing I like about that view is it puts you into the longer term kind of framework, as opposed to, again, just trying to get in the gym and destroy yourself day after day and week after week. And if after a month of that, or after 6 months of that, you haven't gained some predetermined amount of muscle or strength that somebody on Instagram said that you can gain if you do it that way, well, then maybe you should just stop.
Well, it's a bunch of crap. And I've been lifting weights since 1965. And if I've been blitzing and bombing since 1965, I don't know if I'd have a joint that still worked. And what bothers me about these Instagram clowns and the crap you see, and thankfully magazines are disappearing. Sadly, the internet took over. But it's this nonsense. And, like I'll hear people say, someone critiqued one of my books by saying, that's not how Mr. Olympia trains. And it's like, well, if you want to train like Mr. Olympia, your pharmacy bill is going to be more than probably most people listening's rent. And you're going to have to make a lot of life decisions to have
that might just be your money. GH bill alone.
Yeah. And so this idea that, and then and the problem is, that's why I love track and field and swimming so much, is you got these two sports that you can see when anything you've added works or doesn't work. And you can just see it. I mean, if the discus goes farther, you jump higher, you run the hurdles faster, whatever we did, even if it's stupid, worked. And my knock on hypertrophy work for athletes and even general population is that, the old phrase, and it's a bit sexist, but I still like it. Looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. And that is, I think, a real truism. I'm 64 and I'm still the person people call when they want to move a couch. I'm 64 and I still win Highland Games with the Opens, and it's because these guys, God bless them, they're training like bodybuilders to do an explosive throwing sport. And it's just wrong. And the truth is, when you're in the world of sports, your body, there's a phrase from Charlie Francis, looks right, flies right. Your body will, if you want a great body, gentle listener, here's what I want you to do. I want you to train like an Olympic 400 meter runner. Don't worry about diet. Don't worry about any of that stuff. When you run 400 meters as fast as you can, you don't have to worry about what you had for lunch, because lunch will be on the inside track at the finish line. That's where lunch will be. Probably the second 400 meters, that's where breakfast from 2 days ago will be. And trust me, you're going to lean out, because that's the adaptions your body will have. So when I look at this stuff online, I'm always wondering why they just don't the simpler way. If you want to look lean and all this stuff, go train like a 400 meter runner. You'll lean out.
I may prefer just following a meal plan. That might be
well, exactly. Yeah. But however you do it, it's So we're in a strange time in the fitness industry. I thought you couldn't get worse than what we had in the 80s and 90s, but my old friend.
You think it's worse now, really?
Oh yeah.
I mean, so the evidence-based movement has grown.
Okay.
I'll say a lot more people, I think just everyday people understand, let's say, energy balance and they understand macronutrients and why you need enough protein. I think a lot more people understand that now. Maybe I'm wrong. Then again, you've been in this game a lot longer than I have. It just
When's
seems
the last
like,
time you've been to Dolly Parton land?
What does that even mean?
Dolly land. Go to any amusement park and then get back to me on what you just said.
Yeah. I was at Disney World. I don't know, 6 months ago or something.
And what are the French?
It wasn't. It didn't. It wasn't.
What do the French come back when they get back from Disney World? What do they talk about? They talk about this thing called the balloon people. The people who are so inflamed that they begin to look like balloons. So no, I don't disagree with you. I'm just
now, but I think that's different though than I'm just saying like fitness people, quote unquote, people who at least care a little bit about this stuff.
That would be true. Yeah. The role, honestly though, if you ate like what grandma would have told you, you'd probably be better, eat veggies, eat your protein, sure. Eat veggies, drink water.
Eat like an adult, as you like to say, right?
Well, there's an adjective before the word adult, but yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, which is, again, that's even now the evidence-based way to eat is basically that. It's get most of your calories from this nutritious stuff that you basically prepare yourself. Yeah. Eat your vegetables, eat your fruits, eat your legumes, seeds, whole grains, eat your protein, and you have a lot of foods to choose from. Don't listen to the people who say that you can't eat potatoes or sweet potatoes or that things have to be gluten-free, blah, blah, blah. So I, again, in my experience, just with people, again, I would say who care enough to work out at least a couple times per week, right? And actually attempt to follow something of a sensible eating regimen. Mm-hmm. For those people, I think conditions are a bit better now, at least than when I even started doing anything in the fitness space, which I guess was 2012, but I may be wrong.
Yeah, and you also came in at a time where it's a little bit easier to pick and choose. Back in the day when there was only Strength and Health magazine and Muscle Development from York, and then All American Athlete and Muscle and Fitness from Weider, one sold supplements with a soy base and the other one sold supplements with a soy base. And that was the difference in those two companies. Yeah. And it's nowadays you have a lot. And I do think some of the supplement companies are a lot more responsible now. And I think, but then the next day I'll read about something else. And I'm like, how did we get back to that?
Supplementation is its own thing. I don't know how much that space has.
But it's the engine that drives most of the nutrition in the income from supplements. It's like I tell people, I'm not going to get a lot of money telling you to eat kimchi, oatmeal, broccoli, get more sleep, drink more water. I'm not going to make a ton of money on that. But, and gentle listener, today only I have a special on, super rip guy 5,000. It's just real hard to.
Oh, you can get rid of the vegetables if you take my
Yeah.
greens supplement that
The
gives
greens,
you
God,
72 servings.
supplement.
Actually, you get an entire week's worth of your greens in one scoop. I mean, that's it. How simple is that?
Oh my God, I don't know whoever came up with that. Oh, the taste of this stuff, huh?
Marketers.
Oh, it's so bad. But let's continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to segue on that.
Yeah, no. So coming back to easy strength.
Mm-hmm.
So what style of training is that then? If it's not your traditional,
it is your traditional
bodybuilding.
Okay.
Okay. I'm coming from. I'm a newbie in your eyes in terms of how much time I've been in this space. Yeah. But it's not for a lot of the listeners when they think of quote unquote traditional. So they're thinking of bodybuilding training or even strength work. If they're thinking of strength training, they're going to probably think of Ripeto's stuff. They're going to think of 5x5. They're going to think of Wendler's stuff. So what is easy strength?
Well, easy strength is an idea obviously been around a long time. And really it's where it really boomed is that, Charles Staley used to have a thing called a boot camp, and he invited speakers to come down. Well, one year his speaker canceled just a few days before. So Charles, a friend of mine, told Charles to invite me, and I went down. Well, this actually started my career. But Pavel Satsulin and I sat down after and we're talking, and he said, how busy are you? And I said, I'm working 2 full-time jobs. At the time, I was an administrator and a college professor. And 2 full-time jobs. I got 2 daughters at home. Balls are in the air. And he said, for the next 40 days, pick 5 lifts, never go to failure, never do more than 10 total reps. So that's 3 sets of 3, 2 sets of 5 is the standard. And by the way, this
in a single workout.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This cutting edge workout is exactly what you'll get in this book here from 1962, the Sears Barbell and Dumbbell exercise program from Ted Williams. It's funny how when he told me the program, I said, I've heard this before. It's the way people train when I was young. And I followed it to the absolute T. The key is this. And for example, I one of the exercises I picked was incline bench press. And so I started off with 2 sets of 5 with 165, which is, air. And I kept doing that until, like he said, it felt so light, it was silly. So I jumped to 185. I jumped a week or so later, I'm at 205. A week or so later, I'm 255, all 2 sets of 5 with that exercise. And then one day by myself in my garage, and it's winter, December, so it's freezing here in Utah, I benched 315 for a double, no spotter, with a car at my feet that a brand new car, if I missed the lift. So my incline bench had been only 300, but I did 315 for a double. So a 15-pound jump in my PR for a double. Easily could have got more, but I racked it because I didn't want to do any damage to myself with the car. And then I thought to myself, when I put the bar in, it's like, okay, this is 22 days. So basically we're looking at week 5-ish, because I lift 5 days a week. And I had added 15 pounds to a lift. And I'm not some guy who just showed up. I'm a pretty experienced lifter. I was an international level thrower at the time. And I'm like, this is too good to be true. Many of the workouts, I did a workout one time on the light day where I was boiling a pot of water for something for dinner. I put the pot of water on. When it came to a boil, the workout was over. 5 exercises. That was a light day. So it was just the 1 set of 10, just kind of a tonic workout. And I thought to myself, and then that season I go out and I'm throwing the discus and I'm doing Highland Games, and people keep coming up and going, hey man, what are you on? And I'm like, I'm on nothing. This is the workout I'm doing. And I would tell them literally line by line, point by point, on a napkin at a restaurant, going to the exact numbers I'm using. And they're like, no, really, what are you on? No, nothing. You're working out 2 hours a day in the weight room, and I'm working out 15 minutes, and I'm throwing farther than you. At least show some intellectual integrity and think through what I just said. And they can't, because of the same problems I guarantee the bulk of your listeners are going to have. The problem is, if something easier comes by and it makes you go, wait a sec, so I can do less and get more, it makes you very angry and literally unable to almost hear.
Or rightfully skeptical. I mean, it does sound too good to be true, right?
Yeah, but if you were to tell me that you're going to build an elite athlete program by following Mr. Universe's program, and they're going to be elite American football players, they would look good with their uniforms off, but they'd get destroyed on the field of play.
Yeah.
And when these guys show up at Highland Games and they brag of, they wear that where they take the shirt and they roll it up the edges, they do that thing, and they show up and they're, what do you, when someone says, when they ask me what I bench, that's when I feel, oh, this is going to be a fun day beating this guy.
I think the key distinction there for the listeners is we're talking about aesthetics versus athletics. Those are very different.
This is true too.
But you're not going to build. I would say, and you correct me if you think I'm wrong, but if your primary goal is to achieve a certain body composition and a look, and that requires gaining about as much muscle as is genetically available to you, you're not going to get there doing 15-minute workouts. It's just not going to happen.
I wouldn't agree with that, but I'll just say this. January 1st, I weighed 250 and I decided to get down to 102 kilos for this meet. 3 months later, I weighed 220. I lost 30 pounds in 3 months, not dieting. And what I did for my workouts was easy strength for Olympic lifting, which is, 3 sets of 3 in the snatch, 5 singles in the clean and jerk, and then went for a walk. I'm probably in the best shape I've been in since the 2007-8 seasons. And I'm training, the walk, the walk takes a half an hour, 45 minutes, but the weight just poured off of me and I feel better. When people ask me about the best way to get, one of the things when you go to an Olympic lifting meet, just about every Olympic lifter, it looks as better than most bodybuilders. Now that's true. Everyone thinks super heavies, but those guys never do more. Nowadays, it's rare for an Olympic lifter to do just anything but singles. So it is possible, but again, the steno symbol is when we have a word or phrase that has one meaning. So when the bulk of your audience is listening, they're thinking body composition. I've heard people say, well, I want to look good naked. And then I'll follow up. Why do you want to look good naked? Because, I want to have sex. And I keep telling them, well, if you had any kind of dental hygiene, you learned how to dance and you learned to talk to people you're interested in, like human persons, you'd probably do better anyway versus, looking good naked, So, well, I just think you can, but
it's probably easier to get abs though. Than all those other things. You could change your personality or just get some abs.
Yeah. But if you're showing your abs off at a dance floor, that's good for you. And good luck on that marriage long term. Good luck when life hits you.
Mike, marriage is that happens later,
Mike, how old are you now?
36.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 36 been lifted. How many years been lifted?
I started when I was 17.
Okay.
I didn't know what I was doing though. For the first 7 years I bought bodybuilding magazines.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And I did they were always body part splits and tons of volume. And obviously it worked to some degree because anything works in the beginning.
Yeah. For 6 weeks. Yeah.
Until it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. So after 35, I don't mind traditional bodybuilding for anybody. I think there's real value because after 35, it just seems like the body conspires to get rid of lean body mass. It wants to get fat and it wants to lose muscle. It just does. And what you'll find over the next few years is that you probably have this much wiggle room when you're 35. You got this much at 45. You got this much at 55. At my age, the wiggle is out of the wiggle room. And so you better show up at 64 in pretty good shape because it's real hard to move from there. But you probably at your age now, and if I'm wrong, you could probably have, I got to be careful of this. One of the best ways for people to lose weight, I think, is to go on an all-inclusive vacation to Jamaica. Sleep in, hang around the sun all day, go to those buffets and eat all you can. If you weigh before you leave and you weigh when you come home, very often people lose weight on those trips because they lose that stress held, the inflammation of life, the boss, the commute, the kid, the thing, and
the masks,
the thing. And when they let that go for a week, the body responds by going, But you could probably make some bad cake decisions and get away with it, right? And 10 years from now, you can make a cake bad decision. And then, 10 years later, maybe half a cake, and that's just, and so, yeah. So don't think I'm against anything. But when you're talking about easy strength, truth is most people literally cannot hear you. They just cannot hear you. And I think strength is the most important quality a strength coach can do. I mean, it's in the name, because what we say, especially in the kettlebell community, is that absolute strength is the glass, and all the other qualities are the liquid in the glass. I've gone out with some of the best female athletes in the world, and one of the interesting things is they'll sit next to you and drink a pitcher of beer, and then the next day you see them walking past, and it's like, well, because their glass is a keg, and they can get away with a lot. Some people, because they're not strong enough, they have a shot glass of strength, and they got to keep an eye on every drop that goes into that shot glass. I think as we age, that we go from keg to pitcher to drinking glass to highball glass to shot glass, and I think that's why it's so important that you have a tool like Easy Strength in your coaching pocket, because if I'm working with a traditional older client, in my world, anybody older than 22 is old in sports. Okay. Once you're 22, you're ancient. That's, the clock, she is ticking. That's a fun phrase to say. So when I'm working with an aging athlete, I always keep about, I would say 2 to 4 months a year as an Easy Strength protocol. And then 3 to 6 week kind of ramp up programs, your bikini program, whatever, what I'm saying, your 3 week body comp program, your 6 week, that whatever you do from whatever you call your January to second week of February program, your May bikini, whatever those. But I do think in between those, getting stronger gives you a better ramp to improve off the next time you go for it.
And is the Easy Strength approach your go-to? I don't, if that's in the book, I don't remember that. I remember you talking about it as a method.
Oh yeah, it's a method. So if I'm working with a discus thrower, Easy Strength would come and go through the season appropriately. We might have a real focused Olympic lifting 3 weeks and then go Easy Strength after that. In the off season with the thrower, you might be on a mass building program, high rep squats and things like that. If I'm working with a general client, you probably tap out on the Easy Strength. We say the 40 workouts, but honestly, I've discovered 6 to 8 weeks of it. You pick 5 exercises, you do a total of 10 reps, 3 sets of 3, 2 sets of 5, whatever. At about 2 months, you've pretty much tapped out. Now, I think Easy Strength can continue to get you stronger, but we're not dealing with machines. We're dealing with humans, and you got to change things up. Tommy Kona, the great American Olympic lifter, who was also Mr. Universe, he would prepare himself with an 8-week buildup for an Olympic lifting meet, and the Monday after start bodybuilding again until he got close to an Olympic lifting meet 8 weeks out, and of all the things I've ever seen in my career, that seems to be the most sensible approach. So, if you'd want to flip that script a little bit, 8 weeks of getting strong, then traditional bodybuilding, and then and I got to tell you, that would be not a terrible way to go through a year, January, February, Easy Strength, March, April, ramp it up. You know what I'm saying? That wouldn't be a terrible. Certainly you could do it a little bit more logical with how people's real lives were, but that's not bad at all. Yeah.
And as far as the programming goes, what does the frequency on these exercises look like? Like you had mentioned what you did with your incline bench.
I like the program that goes 5 days a week with so I have a 2-week template. You'd remember that from the book. Mm-hmm. And I put that together just to get people to stop asking me questions, because to me, the whole thing's so easy. But I mean, it's just mentally a very easy thing for me. And I have to remind myself that doesn't mean it's easy for everybody. If you're doing 5 days a week, you'd have probably 3 of the workouts be 2 sets of 5, kind of just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next exercise. 1 day a week, maybe a set of 10 light, 40, 35% of your max. I mean, light, just greasing the groove. Just as we know, that acts well, and the nervous system is still working on that one. And then 1 day a week, like a 5, 3, 2, where that you got to make that double, which is gently heavier. That would be great. I have also had some good success with having now with the Olympic lifts. I've been experimenting with this, where basically I have 3 lightish days a week. But now this is the Olympic lifts. The bar starts on the floor, it goes overhead, I stand up, I drop it. It's a whole body movement. So you might be able to get away with more light and medium with a full body movement than you would with a pull-up, which is, the pull-up stroke that's not very long, the stroke, or the, overhead press. Those are pretty short strokes. Actually, the workout I usually recommend for most people is a vertical press, a military press, a vertical pull, generally pull up, chin up, neutral grip, pull up, lat pull down if you have to. Okay.
Yep.
A deadlift,
or maybe an assisted pull up if you need to.
If you need to, sure. A deadlift variation, and usually I recommend either like deadlift off the rack. So you don't even have to worry about bringing the bar off the floor. The ab wheel, and then like something like a farmer walk. That's like one of my favorite to-goes. And then if you want to lose fat, you go for the walk. It could be that easy. So, so here's your workout for Monday: 2 sets of 5 on the press with a really light weight, 2 sets of 5 on this assisted pull-up thing, which I like because it's easier to play around with the numbers. 2 sets of 5 on the rack deadlift with, 50% of what you think you can do. Set of 10 in the ab wheel. Pick up 2 120-pound dumbbells and go down to the wall and back, and you're done. That's, like I said, it's pretty easy, right?
And this point of never missing a rep is something I know you stressed in the.
That is something. So years ago, one of my
zealous weightlifters would hear that, and it would quickly turn into not what you're talking about, right? Because they're like, that's easy. I'll just add more.
Yeah. My surgeons like the training program. They like me to miss in my training. My surgeons, they think they're like, oh geez, I want my kid to go to Harvard. I hope Dan misses a lift this week.
Maybe I should give him a call. Maybe I should encourage him.
Hey Dan, go heavy today. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Can we FaceTime? How much you bench? Can you show me?
The never miss. So we had a guy, I used to have this great newsletter back in the aughts, and it was really good. And I would get articles from all over the world because I would publish anything. And I didn't have any, you didn't need references. You didn't have to go through anything. You just send it to me. Well, one of the guys was in Bulgaria for work about 2003, and he hears that noise. Now, if you know Olympic lifting, there is a noise that Olympic lifting makes as you walk past a building. Well, if it ain't the Bulgarian national team training. So he asks, and it works out. His Bulgarian was good enough to ask if he could watch. And the guy there was good enough to say, well, you can come anytime you want because you're an Olympic lifter. So he probably watched maybe 10 sessions in 2 weeks, which is money. And the one thing he told me, he never saw anybody on the Bulgarian national team miss a lift. And then I thought, well, and Tommy Kono, again, getting back to him, he once said, every time you miss a lift, it should take you 3 makes to undo the miss. I'm to the point that I think it takes you about 30 to undo the miss. So the downside of missing big lifts is that they hurt you. This surgery is from a miss. Both of those surgeries are from misses. In fact, I can probably go through them all the surgeries I've had, and most of the time it was failed attempts. But at the second level is we're trying to teach the nervous system to be as efficient as possible. And if you miss, you're not teaching the nervous system. Well, what happens very quickly, like you say, you can't see how you can get hypertrophy from it. But, I remember one time my friend John Price and I, we both benched 365 for 10 reps. And my thought process is, for the gentle listener, it was only one set of 10, but I don't know about you, but if you bench 365 for 10, there's a chance your body is going to respond somehow to that load. And so if you get
a lot of weight,
It's a lot of weight when the bar bends when it touches your chest. Yeah. If you're squatting 605 like my friend Bish used to do for 10, there's a good chance your body's going to go, hey, we better do some growing here because something happened out there. So I think you can, by training the nervous system hard enough, getting the loads, reps and sets appropriate, load appropriate, but over time, you will get the hormonal response.
And the key to that, the weights do need to get heavier though. So I get people listening may wonder, okay, so all right, I get it. Make sure the weights are light. Definitely not going to miss any sets, but how do I progressively overload? How do I get stronger? How do I go from where I'm at to ending this 8 weeks with heavier weights?
Well, Mike, that's the hard part. And when I first wrote the book, Easy Strength with Pavel, we had this great conversation. I hate percents. I think percents are just idiocy. When I'm working with a junior high boy who benches 100, there's a good chance he can do 90 for 10 reps because he's brand new to weightlifting. If you bench 200, 180, I mean, say you're an 18-year-old and you're benching 200 and you see 90% for 2. Well, 180 for 2 is pretty believable. When you get a little bit more water on the bridge and you bench 300 and you see 270 for 2, you go, yeah, that's I take a week or two to get, I could do that. When you get to 400 and 90% is 360 and you have to do it for a double, that's a good size weight. Well, when you bench 5 and a double is 450, here's what I'm trying to get across is that those are all 90%. But 450 for a double might take months to build back up to versus the person who's just started, 2 or 3 days ago, 2 or 3 months ago, 1 or 2 years ago. So one of the first things we had,
or somebody who's never going to be able to move that weight ever. I will never, just my body. I have a small skeleton, long arms, long legs. I don't have good levers for lifting, whatever.
Arms will kill you. Yeah.
And so the best I've ever benched. Now I haven't trained specifically for it. My training is for a long time now. It's been kind of like a strength base with some bodybuilding stuff added into it. But my best is maybe 295 for 2. And so looking at, I weighed a bit more, so I'm getting back to that now. I weighed probably 205 when I did that. I weigh about 193 right now. But if I just don't see how my body could ever get far beyond the 3-4-5 benchmark, right? 3 plates on the bench, 4 on the squat, 5 on the deadlift based on where I'm at and how much work I've put into it. So, and I think I talk about that too, that I think that, because I like to give people realistic expectations for both muscle and strength gain. So I've shared that with that's for guys, obviously. Women are a bit lower, but
Mark Twight and I had this. You know who Mark Twight is, and if you don't, he hates it when I summarize his career. But 300, he was the guy who trained the people in 300. He also trained Superman, the original Jim Jones guy. We were working out one time. He goes, "Well, you should easily be able to do this workout." So it took me a while to come around to explain to him that when you're working with people who deadlift 300 and then you're working with people who deadlift 600, that these rules of 95% and 90 don't work. So that's where I came up, and it's a very important part of easy strength. So one of my best lifts of my life was at the national championship. If I make the lift, I'm national champion. If I miss, I take 4th place. Well, I make the lift. Now, here's the thing. Can I ever equal that lift? If someone says to me, well, okay, so your workout today is 90% of that. Well, no, that was to win the nationals in Baton Rouge under a ton of pressure, pull it out of my rear end. It was a one-off lift. So what you have to do with easy strength is you have to really figure out, and the words I use are sort of max, well, and the one I just said is a max, an unrepeatable lift. Almost the longer you're around people, the more you'll have a story with every single attempt. Every single max I have has a story in it because you had to make a choice. It was for a contest. You were trying to break a state record. There's always a story to it. So one of the problems we have with easy strength is that conversation about what is easy, what is light. People want percents, but when you deadlift, like if I'm working with a guy who deadlifts 800, a 50% deadlift is 4. Now, the recovery inroad that an easy 400-pound deadlift is still a huge inroad into your recovery abilities. So if you deadlift 8, your light day might be 225. And you wait, that's ridiculous. That's not a percent. Yeah, I know. So that's kind of where this is where the art of easy strength comes in. You might have some listeners here who want to try it, and they're going to try to do 50%, but their bench press is say 150 pounds, and they're going to put 75 in their male. I don't get anything out of it. Well, yeah, because there's light and there's reasonable, but you have to kind of dial that in for yourself. So easy strength is not for somebody who doesn't want to be tuned into their body, tuned into their training history. If you want to be told exactly what to do, just go online and buy someone's program. But if you really want to experiment with what your abilities can be, then easy strength is an option.
Do you like to maybe think about, for people just listening, I mean, you could use the technical term of reps in reserve, but a weight that when let's say you're doing your 2 sets of 5. So by the 5th, you feel like you could do another 5
4,
plus.
5. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And especially early. And the thing is, it was so natural for me. I honestly felt, I remember jumping from that 165 to the 205. Let's say that happened in a week. And the reason I felt it is I felt like someone was, what do you bodybuilders call that thing where you help somebody? Forced rep.
Spotting. Oh, like a negative.
Oh, no. Bodybuilders, spotting for a bodybuilder is what we call in my world deadlifting. Yes. I used to work with a coach, and all of his athletes all had these massive bench press numbers. Well, I went to the gym one time. Yeah, the athlete was benching 2. He was deadlifting 2, 400-pound bench.
Yeah. Or barbell rowing. Oh, he has a strong row.
Yeah. So, when I'm doing the program right, the weights seem to almost feel like they're being lifted off of me. Yeah. And that's when I know my nervous system is wired. Every single listener knows what it's like to, if you've ever driven a clutch, once you've driven a clutch, your muscle memory is there to do it. So much of the first week or so of easy strength is kind of like riding a bicycle. You haven't ridden a bicycle in 10 years. You jump on, you remember how to ride a bicycle. Maybe your butt isn't ready for the seat, but you remember how to do it. And that's kind of the way easy strength works. It almost takes a week and a half, 2 weeks to figure out, okay, that's what light means for me. And by the time you get there, light is already morphed into more weight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so is the idea then, you both of your sets, let's even look at like the final rep on set 2. Let's say you're doing 5s, or even that one has that snap feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So they all feel that way.
I think so. Yeah. Because you don't want crappy reps.
Yeah.
If you start to drive the elbow out, or
start to struggle, like maybe you're getting to where you're like, maybe I could do 2. I mean, it's not going to move.
That's what it says in the book. I think it says, don't even struggle.
Yeah.
And so again, that's hard to learn. So now you're in the program. Okay. So the first 2 weeks, you're like, I just don't get it. Week 4, you're using what like, for example, you're doing, okay, let's say you're doing front squats. And in week 4, your 2 sets of 5 is with 315. Trust me. And it's easy. It's popping up every time. Trust me. There are hormonal changes going on. You are going to look different. But what is my friend Chris always says?
I've never done 315 on the front squat for 1, but I hear you.
My friend Chris Long always says instant gratification isn't fast enough. And that's one of the things. So that's why I think easy strength works with people who've been around the block a little bit, not because they know, well, they do know one thing. They know what easy feels like. That's the one gift they have. But they've also slammed their face against that wall enough to know that I don't want to slam my face into the wall much longer.
If you like what I'm doing here on the podcast and elsewhere, definitely check out my health and fitness books, including the #1 best-selling weightlifting books for men and women in the world, Bigger, Leaner, Stronger and Thinner, Leaner, Stronger, as well as the leading flexible dieting cookbook, The Shredded Chef. And when you're adding weight, how much do you add? Okay, so you got your sets. They're easy. You're now ready to move up in weight. Is that
here's something. I was fortunate when I first did the program because all I had was 35s and 25s. So those were my options. And then I got a 45-pound plate. So you'll notice my options went 165, that's a 35 plus 25, 185, 45 plus 25, 205, 45, 255. So it was nice. So for me, I like the big, I don't want to see you adding tiny plates on the sides. I'd like to see big jumps.
Okay.
Now, Pavel is really interesting about that. He believes there should only be 2 plates in a gym, the 45-pound plates and the 25. And his idea on this is that it gets you, if you're going to jump from 185 on the bench to 225, you're going to spend a lot more time at 185 practicing good technique and making things are clean before you jump, boom, to the 2 big plates. By the way, when I talk like this sometimes, and this has got to be careful about this, Mike, I did not tell anybody that that's what you have to do. This is a intellectual discussion about what would be a really good way for most people to figure things out. I like substantial jumps.
And it makes sense also, given that things are supposed to be easy. So if you have experienced enough adaptation, a 20-pound jump seems reasonable. Again, if we're talking about a weight that you feel like you could do 5 more reps with, and then you've worked with that and that's gotten even easier.
Yeah.
Okay. Add 20 pounds.
Yeah. Make a big jump. Yeah. And there's another side, and this is just, I have a nice, happy ego. 1991, I guess it was 2, maybe. I was going to, we're at this meet, and Dave Turner and I are talking about my last attempt. And he goes, "You really should take 180." And I'm going, "I'm not going to take 180. I'm going to take 182.5 because in kilos, 180 is 396 and 182.5 is 402. So ain't no way I'm going to come back to English speaking Murray, Utah. So how much you clean a jerk? 396. Because what would every single thing people would say? What the hell, man?
Yeah. Why did you shortchange yourself?
It's like,
it's like the reverse psychology of pricing, right? Don't go with 40. You go with $39.99.
$39.99 is infinitely cheaper than 40. Exactly. And so one of the things that's kind of nice, if you do take this idea, Mike, about this approach we're discussing with the big plates, is it is a little bit satisfying to your headspace. And, the fractional plates. You're going to put, we used to have those. Oh gosh, we used to have these things at Dick Nottmeyer's gym. They were about this big and they weighed, I don't know. I can't remember. It was just
like 25 grams or something.
Right.
Oh, there we go.
So if you were snatching 185, you'd slap one of those on and you tell everybody you got a new PR, So, hey, I just, okay. Listen, I don't think, I'm an easy strength missionary, I'm failing miserably selling it. And I know that because it is, Brett Contreras. I love Brett, good friend of mine. And every time I go to his Instagram account, he has multi-million-dollar hot models in the tightest shorts God has ever made. And they are doing hip thrusts. Now, he has a lot more followers and people listening to him because, and I think a tiny, tiny bit of it is that really, really hot girl in those shorts. I honestly, I know you're shocked.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I know you're sitting there going, disbelief. I don't believe you. And then you got this old curmudgeonly bastard looking like me, 64, cranky son of a bitch, talking about this stuff. And I get it. I need to start wearing a thong is the answer to this, right?
Or you need to be even more prickly. Like look at Mark Ripito. You know, he makes it work.
Well, yeah, but you get to a point with prickly where you're just kind of done with it too. So I get it. I mean, I think easy strength. I mean, this is just one of my libraries, and these magazines go back to the 1940s, and I mean, I've got thousands of magazines. I've got hundreds of books. And I read them, and then every so often I still stop at Barnes and Noble sometimes, and I go to the fitness section just to see what the competition is doing, frankly. And I realize that no matter what I do or say, Suzanne Summers, who's most famously known for being on Three's Company and being blonde, sells more fitness books than I'll ever sell in my whole life. She has a bigger impact on fitness in America than every strength coach at every university and everybody like myself who teaches in college. Suzanne Summers can say that this vitamin, I'll pick this thing up again, this vitamin gets rid of cellulite off the inner thighs, and she's going to outsell me. And so so all I can really do is talk about, it does work. It's not sexy, and that's going to be hard to sell.
I mean, something that could help, and this is just reader feedback, is if let's say people listening, right? And they're like, sure, I'll give this a try. This sounds interesting. I guarantee you they're not clear about how to go about it. And they could read your book, and I'd recommend reading it attempts, but reading through it's not that you can't figure it out, but you have to sit down and you have to think about it and you have to write it out. And that's what I would have to do. And I know that sounds silly, but if I would say, for example, if you gave some example workouts in there and gave a little bit more, just kind of take the thinking out of it, or make it more prescriptive. Just do this and you'll be doing.
So if you want that, just go to danjohnuniversity.com. Then we have the easy strength. So in fact, it even comes, then it pops up on your, you get an email and you press the button and it tells you what to do.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a good thing. The other issue, and this is something I've learned. So I've been online with a blog or whatever since 1998, and I've probably answered. I mean, I saw the other day that I have 30,000 emails in my sent. So let's say 27,000 of those are exercise emails. Okay. That's just that one account. Okay.
I've got you beat there.
Okay. You answer that many emails?
My main inbox, sent and received, so I have to look at actually sent, is over 200,000 by now.
You actually answer questions?
I'm not saying that I'm just telling, I'm saying it half jokingly, obviously.
Holy
I'm not saying, there was a time when I was spending 4 to 5 hours a day just answering emails.
Okay. So let me just go through the list though. The very first thing we have to establish is, what equipment do you have? See, that's the problem. So, and this is why the workout generator is on the Dan John University, because the very first question is, what equipment do you have?
Yeah.
So if you were like what I have now in my little home gym, I have 3 Olympic bars, 26 kettlebells, 4 TRXs, bunch of suspension trainers, bands, a squat rack, a dip rack, a pull-up rack, 2 different hip thrust machines, every carrying equipment, every Highland thing, okay. So if little Danny sees a program, it's a rare program I can't do. Your home gym, for example, Mike, Mike invited me this morning. I
have dumbbells.
He has a 28 kilo kettlebell, and that's his whole home gym.
Oh, that's it. Okay, good.
But that's fine, because I can come up with it. Now that I know what equipment you have, then I can answer the question of how to design the ES for you. And that was the hardest lesson for me to learn. And by the way, attempts being about a year and probably a half old from the writing, even though I knew it right in the book a year and a half ago, it wasn't as clear as it should be. There should have been a chapter in the easy strength thing called equipment first. And I didn't. And I wouldn't say it's
doesn't that shit bother you? As somebody who's done a lot of writing, I still just, when I go back through stuff, and I've done many iterations, especially my flagship books, it just bothers me when I find major, like, how did I not think of this? And then I have to fix it. And then I'm annoyed that people are buying currently what's not fixed yet.
And I think that's why I'm moving to more like web courses versus books. Because if I do come up with something, it's a very easy, versus, writing a new book. But if there was an error, and I apologize to the listeners I should always ask, what equipment do you have? Question number one. But the follow-up is, what do you know how to do? So when I say squat, I mean, I have a very clear, definitive mental image of what I mean by squat. And then when many of our listeners are thinking squat, they're doing this bizarre thing that's not squatty. When I say hinge, like in the deadlift, swing, snatch, clean, I have a very clear image of what I'm talking about. So I those would be the first two. So what equipment do you have? What do you know how to do? How many days a week do you want to work out? Because we can do 3. I've done, like when I did the 10,000 swing challenge to start the year off with that group, that January 1st, we're all going to swing 10,000. I did the 10,000 swing challenge in the first 20 days. Check that. The day you finish on day 19, by the way, if you do it the first 20 days, because day 1 is 1. Don't worry about it. So I did the 10,000 swing challenge in straight, and didn't miss a day, 500 swings a day. Well, somebody else says, how did you finish so fast? And then I go, well, how many days a week are you doing? Well, I'm doing 3. Well, I did those 4 extra days a week allowed me to get a little ahead of you, so, and then after that, an important question is, what intensity do you want to do it at? I mean, do you want to do it to prepare yourself for some of my best athletes were the 2012 Olympics, and we really had a nice, easy strength thing going on in 2011, because these athletes trusted with that extra year to have that year of experiment. So a few of them who did very well, by the way, had that extra year to go, okay, I'm cool with this. But, if the Olympic trials are next Saturday, we don't have time. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. They don't feel under the gun, or they're not under the gun.
Yeah. So those would be the things that made it a little harder for me to say, do this. But now I feel much more comfortable with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, for people listening who want to give it a go, it's danjohnuniversity.com, right? And then, because I guarantee you the majority of people who want to try it would appreciate some sort of template that they can look at.
Gentle listener, just do the workout generator for a couple of weeks first, just to get a sense to see. And then when you slide over to easy strength, it won't. And that actually, I've had a couple of people do this, if you don't mind, Mike, is they do an easy strength template, get stronger, then do the workout generator for a traditional 3-day-a-week whole body hypertrophy program. And guess what happens when you do a 3-day-a-week hypertrophy program when you're stronger? You get better results.
Yeah, you gain more muscle.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's just, I think we just invented that. Write that down.
You can lift heavier weights. Therefore, it's a better training stimulus.
It's night and day. But you're right. And and your point was good. And I think it is a lesson a lot of us have been learning since 1998, 99, 2000 with the internet. It's that, I don't know if you ever read Mrs. Pigglewiggle books. I know some of your listeners has Mrs. Pigglewiggle. It's called the I Thought You Said chapter. It's when little kids, you'll say something and say, oh, I thought you said, and something, my brother is dying of cancer. I thought you said he was dying of reindeers. And it's a very annoying thing little kids do. But I thought you said is something that a lot of us were struggling with back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, early 90s. When I would read about a program, I'd be like, what in the hell are you doing that for? But then when you saw the person's training facility, or you saw what they were dealing with, or you saw what they didn't have, you would go, oh, I see. And when I was an administrator, I was a strong believer in something called management by wandering around, where I would drive and go to the person's office who I was having problems with. And very often, by the time I sat down, we didn't have any problems. I understood it was a situation not the person. So sometimes, for example, Charlie Francis's, why he had his sprinters do so many 60 meter runs, because that's the track they trained on indoors, was 60 meters. It wasn't magic. That's all he had. And all of a sudden you go, oh, okay. So if you're telling me that all your athletes are bulking up because they're doing snatch and clean and jerk, and I'll be like, wow, and then I come see your facility and it's a world-class Olympic lifting training place where you've got platforms and everything and coaches on every platform, I'll go, oh, I see. Okay. But if you've got 66 kids and one Olympic bar, you're going to have to do something radically different. So those have been the big insights of that. That's been the gift for me of the internet, is I understand now why sometimes people just don't get it. And it's not their fault. They don't have the equipment I have, the weather I have, the facility, the support I have, or they have better this, better that, better this. And they don't need to go through this idiotic thing that I have to. It gets taken care of. I was working with an athlete from a European country who's the physical education program at that European country was so advanced that everything we basically worked with her, she had done that in the 5th and 6th grade already. Wow. So, you got this collegiate athlete who's got this great background in sprint technique, plyometrics, Olympic lifting, kettlebells, med ball. She knew 1,000 med ball exercises. So you have to take that athlete and go, okay, now let me work with these Americans from, whose ideas, what PE was dodgeball and pick up basketball.
Literally what I did for PE. That was fun though.
Yeah, it was fun, but you didn't learn sprint technique and the Olympic lifts and the kettlebells and medicine ball work. Yeah, tumbling. They had a whole course on tumbling. She was, if I don't know. I guess my point is the joy of the internet for me, and your point about the downfall is, once again, this is the greatness of the internet, is that you can share that with me. I can share my issues, and I think we're both better at the end of the conversation.
And I've seen that effect again particularly in the evidence-based fitness space. At least that type of information is becoming more popular. Not all of it is good. A lot of it, though, is better than the standard of information when I first got in, when I was just like you were saying, I had the magazines and you had the big, huge bodybuilders, and, this is supposedly how they trained. And that was really it.
Yeah. I'm surprised they haven't been candid about the pharmacy issues in that world. I have friends who will talk to me unfiltered. And frankly, it scares me.
They're like chemistry experiments.
Oh, it's amazing. Ingesting basically rat poison to lean out.
All kinds of things that I don't know if we'll ever really have research on because of the ethical implications. So you just have case studies of people who are injecting all kinds of interesting chemicals, and I guess we'll just see what happens. Like, that's pretty much it.
I don't know if I can support that as a dad and grandfather, but yeah, it's true. And I'm a big believer. In fact, in theology, common sense is considered the highest form of reasoning. But I like experience, but then experience runs in. And by the way, I'm not discounting Bigfoot or anything, or the Loch Ness Monster. And if you have seen Bigfoot, gentle listener, please don't email me.
I saw a headline actually recently on the Loch Ness. Somebody had taken a video of it goes, I don't know, who knows? I could care less one way or another. What does it really matter? But there did seem to be some weird snaky thing going through the water. I don't know.
Sure. Well, evidence, eyewitness is, if you've ever been in an auto accident, and then I was at a court case one time, and I know what I know. I know what I saw, and it's not what happened.
Yeah.
My mind.
7 different people all saw different things.
Yeah. But I'm a big believer in experience with an asterisk. So I like experience, but and God bless him, he just died the other day. Mark Eaton, the great Utah Jazz center who I helped in the weight room. When you meet Mark Eaton, one of the first things you realize is that you'll never play center in the National Basketball Association. He was a normal sized human at 7'4", and he held my daughter Kelly in his hand like this. Like this. He had a baby in his hand like this. That's a big guy. So as much as if Mark is teaching your 12-year-old son how to play center, that's great. But there's a good chance your son's not going to make it to the NBA. So I am a great fan of experience, and I'm a great fan of, us sharing the information, but there's always an asterisk on it, And when you read articles and you find out, a buddy of mine was a real druggie and he died young. And when he died, a whole bunch of his friends defended him because people said he was a druggie. And then a documentary came out about him, and they have his journals in there, and he talks about all the drugs he's doing. It's like, well, okay. You could not do the things he did physically without some kind of massive support from stuff.
And that's in a lot of sports, a lot of athletics. Something I've commented on tangentially. It's not particularly relevant to my focus, which is just helping normal people get into good shape. But it is, again, I mentioned this earlier, in the context of expectations and what you see online, because you have a lot of men. It's more of an issue with men, obviously, but in some cases, women, mostly men. Yeah, they look great. I mean, they're the trifecta. They're big, and by big, I mean big. They're strong, actually strong, and they're lean, right? And they're like that all the time. And they claim to be natural, and that's all they talk about is how natural they are, which is a red flag, by the way. Anybody who consistently says they're not on drugs, if they are big, lean, and strong, and they consistently claim that they are natural, there's a good chance that they're not. But the problem is, and I know this firsthand, having heard from so many people over the years, guys in particular, is they're getting into this thing and they see this guy on Instagram and they go, oh, they take his claims at face value. And now they think that this guy's experience is not only possible for them, but maybe even normal. And some of these people, they promote their personal story as if this is just the normal thing. You don't need outstanding. Some of them go as far as saying, look, I didn't have good genetics. I was this skinny little wimp when I first started lifting, and now I'm jacked, and you could do this too. And so it sets guys up for failure because they're expecting to be able to gain far more muscle and strength than they are going to be able to gain. They're expecting to do it a lot faster. And then when their experience doesn't meet these false expectations, they can go in different directions. It can be they process the disappointment and they just move on. Or in some cases, it actually leads to drug use because they think that's the only... there's just something wrong. They must have such bad genetics that they should just, accept reality and get on drugs.
Well, on the female side, between plastic surgery and Photoshop, you can have and painting the face.
Yeah, I was gonna say makeup as well. I mean,
you really can produce a false narrative that I think has an impact on especially young ladies. My daughters. This is tough. I mean, it's tough for me to talk about. My daughters were both throwers, and my daughter Lindsay, who's upstairs with my grandson Leo, she was she threw for the University of Utah the hammer. I'll be honest with you. It's when you got a daughter who's in the weight room snatching and clean and jerking and doing squats, there's a little bit of you. It's like, this isn't the itsy bitsy college cheerleader, and this isn't the cover of Shape magazine girl. And I talk about it in fact, I have a whole chapter on it in Josh Hillis's book where I talk about it. And I think it's a very, not only is it a false narrative from these Instagram models and some of these the celebrities, but I think it rains RAINS down on some of these poor adolescent females who are struggling with the realities of reality. And I do. My heart, it kind of hurts my feelings. Now,
and you're talking about beauty standards.
Talking about beauty standards and the physical standards.
Yeah, and the pressure that young women feel to look a certain way.
So a woman told me here, she's a counselor at the schools, and the impact of porn on the adolescents and what they consider sex. And it was like, I'm not a prude at all. I'm just saying that when she finished talking to me, all I could think was, oh dear God, I'm so glad my daughters are 30s. Just when I was young, getting a porn movie was hard. You had to get it was hard to get. And now,
is that a reel-to-reel projector? Is
yeah,
that what that was?
yeah. And now, the kids think that this is what happens. And it's like, oh boy. And you take that and you just slide over to how you should also look and how you should also be in a relationship. And I'm just glad a lot of kids come out of it okay.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I guess we're going to see in the next 10 to 20 years what the effects. I mean, we know I've spoken about porn some time ago. I do an episode every month or so where I address something that people disagree with me on. Right. So I ask people to tell me something you disagree with me on.
Interesting.
And I call it says you is the little series. And I had commented on porn previously that I think we'd be better off if it were banned. Right. And I would be totally okay with it being banned. I mean, I think in Israel they banned it. Why can't we do it here? Or in the UK, I think they've already either going to or they already have put something in place where you actually, and this is very British because they don't give, they're essentially a police state. You have to put in a government ID, like you have to have a government ID and you have to input the information to access porn, and you have to be 18 or older, right? And so I did a little episode because somebody disagreed with me that porn's not that bad, or even that it's good, right? And I went over some of the research that's on porn. And yes, particularly with younger people, I think that you can make a good logic and evidence-based argument for adults, but particularly, I mean, even starting at like the changes to the brain, and it messes kids up. And
alcohol for a teenager,
yeah. I mean, I started looking at porn when I was probably 13. And then I did it for a while, and I eventually stopped, and I haven't looked at it once in many years. But fortunately, for whatever reason, I guess I got out of it fairly unscathed. But it minimally warped my perception of sex in a negative way, and it didn't go as far as like erectile dysfunction or
choking someone or hurting someone,
or turning it into pain type stuff. Although I know some people, I mean, I don't know if it's porn that did it, but I know some people who have gone sex. The only way they could enjoy it anymore was it had to be degrading to the woman. Like that was the key,
Sorry.
But anyway, so yeah, just I guess we'll see. Again, there's more and more evidence that we would be better off without it. And of course, it's more popular now than ever, I'm assuming. I haven't looked at that data anytime recently, but I doubt it has gone down in popularity in the last several years.
Well, Teresa Rodriguez, she's a researcher down in Arizona State. She actually did kind of an interesting study on it. And the thing that was the most damning and I actually used it just before the 2002 Olympics on women in sport I was asked to do a workshop here locally about how it warps the male perception of a normal female. And I thought that was fascinating. Folks, I'm not moralizing. I'm not getting on a high horse. I'm just speaking. Okay.
I mean, I don't even give that disclaimer because I don't. It's not about me claiming that I'm better because I don't look at porn. No, I looked at porn for a long time, and I could talk about my personal experiences, positive experiences of not looking at it. But really, when I was talking about it, I was just going over the research that is available on it and saying, "Hey, I'm not one for scientism. I'm not one for just blindly bowing to whatever the quote unquote science is. But when you have a lot of anecdotal evidence and you have a lot of firsthand experience, a lot of people listening have probably looked at porn and have probably done it consistently and have experienced some negative things firsthand. And you have scientific evidence. When you have all of those things converging, that's when I think we really need to pay attention.
And that brings us back to, honestly, the role of science and art in what I do. so much of what I do in the strength world is scientifically based. From the research of the 40s and 50s, I start doubting things when the 60s start to roll around because of the use of PEDs of various kinds. But then at the same time, there is an art to what I have to do. And my athletes don't have the time for the researcher to get it right.
And science moves slowly. It just does.
Well, that's why I always go back. That's why I go back to the German and American studies of the 40s, 50s, and early 60s. And I look at that and as my foundation, okay, this taking vitamin D in the winter seems to help athletes. All right. That's a German study, Hettinger's book, The Physiology of Strength. Okay. If you get injured, your return time to your previous strength levels happens much faster than the original. And every time you get hurt after that, it gets faster and faster as it comes back. That stuff has never changed. But then there's the art side I got to take this information and I've got 6 weeks to get Mike in the best shape to get Mike in a place where he can perform as well as he can at the Olympic trials.
Which is harder than just into great shape. Like you were saying, that's quantitative. It's not qualitative. It's subjective. Like, my biceps do look a little bit better, don't they?
Well, it's like we always say, the problem with strength and conditioning is it's strength and more conditioning. Conditioning for what? When I was young in high school, the U.S. Army used to give us these little things, and I've bought them back, called conditioning for a purpose. And it was and I love that little line. There was a reason why you got in shape. And I still talk about this all the time. And I mean, I look at some of the things you push it's getting better, by the way, but what you do with American football players, and they just beat the hell out, run kids off. And it's like, I played the game, and the only time my conditioning ever came in, and I learned this as a defender, if we had a pick six, interception, go for a touchdown, I would no longer get excited because I was on the PA team. So I was on defense, score, PAT, kickoff, and now I'm back on defense. And happy because the kickoff, and if someone went offsides, that's the only time I ever really needed conditioning. I'm in shape right now to play the position I played. I mean, I don't know if I'd last, but the idea is that there's conditioning that's for a purpose, that's appropriate, that's enough. And part of the problem with the American experience in strength and conditioning is that we tend to fall in love with the Gatorade commercial. Mm-hmm. Everyone's sweating and high-fiving, and that's not a good image for what actual conditioning is. To quote that great 1970s song, enough is enough is enough is enough. I can't go on. I can't go on. Enough is enough. Conditioning. Yeah.
I like it. Well, this has been a great discussion. I really appreciate you again taking the time. And why don't we wrap up with, I've mentioned the book that instigated this was its attempts. And so anybody listening, if you're still listening, you're going to like the book, just pick it up. Yeah. And then where can people go? You mentioned Dan John University. Is there anything else you want them to know about?
Sure. If you want literally 3,000 pages of free material, and I say pages, I mean pages. I got a book on raising my daughters. I got a book on discus throwing. I got a book on kettlebells, and I got a book on weightlifting, all for free at danjohn.net. It's all free. Help yourself. Read through it. If you think you know something, go start reading some of those archives and put your there's stuff from the Chinese national team, the Bulgarian national team, world record holding a triple jump. And then danjohnuniversity.com. We just came out with a course on how to program for normal people. People want me to do a programming for elite athletes, and it's just like, I don't know if it'd have any value, to be honest with you, Mike. I don't,
because there's so much of the art. Is that why?
Yeah, and
I mean, there's not a big addressable market if you're looking at it from like an economic.
Yeah, and when I talk in Easy Strength about working with sprinters, I mean, they were born and God hit them with a lightning bolt. It's like major league pitchers. I remember this dad one time talking about his son who threw the ball 83 miles an hour. It's like, okay, that's a changeup that's a changeup for a junior college pitcher. It's not a fastball. I had a kid who threw 95 miles an hour, and the major leagues didn't even sniff at him nowadays.
Wow.
95.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, what do you have to
That
have?
makes me think of something you mentioned in your book, which is, I forget who said this. You were quoting somebody else, but like, I'm paraphrasing, and you can let me know if I'm remembering correctly. That if you're not at the highest level of your sport within a couple of years, like, you're never going to be world class. Just forget about it.
You're not good enough. Tommy Kono said that. So did my friend John Powell, the discus thrower.
John Powell's I remembered, but I didn't know if that was
Yeah,
correct.
if you specialize and you're not world class in 2 to 3 years, you're not good enough. And I tell you that breaks your heart a little bit. Now, having said that, that's world class.
That's world class, exactly.
So it doesn't mean you can't enjoy.
I remembered that correctly. And of course, you're not saying you can't get really good at something. Like,
Yeah.
that's not the
Yeah.
point.
Well, and I'm sure you got a person or two in the audience who plays a musical instrument, and I can guarantee when they're playing their guitar in their basement, man, you should really go on tour. And you're like, well, yeah, I'm good, but I'm not that good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me when I was taking up golf, and
Yeah.
I've always I grew up playing sports, and I've always been fairly good at various athletic things, just coordinated, whatever. I'd been lifting weights for a while, so I was strong, and that helps with golf. And most golfers are not strong at all. And so I remember getting some lessons with a teacher, and he was trying to pitch me on, stop working, stop doing what you're doing, just pursue golf. Like, you
You're crazy.
maybe you can go all the way, maybe. And I was like, no, I hadn't come across this John Powell thing yet, but I just knew. It was like, no. Because I actually had a little bit of experience. I've shared this story before on the podcast. It's been a while though. So I played a lot of ice hockey, right?
Okay.
And so when I was young and I was a teenager, I thought I was really good. And it turns out I was like, okay for my age. That's it, right? But I thought I was better than I was. My friends and I thought we were all hot shit. One of them ended up playing D1, which is, so he was good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But we thought we were really good, right? So we were at a camp, and it was being run by a guy named John Tucker, I believe, played on the Lightning at the time. And he was, at the time, the Lightning were terrible. I think they were the worst team, worst record in the league, right? So we're in the locker room putting all of our shit on, getting ready for the camp. And we're just talking shit. We're like saying, why are we at John Tucker's hockey camp? Like, he was on the worst team in the league, and we would joke that he was the worst player on the worst team. Like, when we would watch him on TV,
Sure.
he looked so slow and useless. You might as well just had like a blow up doll, on a stand, just whatever, moving around on the ice randomly. And so we kind of had this little attitude. And so we get into the camp, and one of my friends, the kid who went and ended up playing D1, I think at Boston. So he's challenging. His name was Nick, right? Nicky is what we call him. So he's challenging John to one-on-one in front of, there's maybe 60 of us or whatever, right? 50, something like that. And John's blowing him off. And finally John sees like, oh, okay, so this kid, I don't know he sees there's something that this kid's like trying to show him up, right? And so we're probably like 14, right? And John's a fucking adult, right? NHL player. And it was just a rude awakening when he finally was like, all right, come on, let's go. One-on-one. And this guy could skate backwards twice as fast and agilely, if that's a word, as Nicky could skate forward. Like, they could go 1,000 times and Nicky would have never gotten by once. Impossible. John was he would just knock the puck away every time. Just there's nothing Nicky could do. So after that, we were like, holy shit, actually. Because again, when you watch these players on TV, John looked terrible. He really did look bad.
It's such a leap.
Oh, man. And so throughout the course of that camp, we got to interact with John, and he was showing us different things. And I mean, he was by far the best hockey player I'd ever been on the ice with, of course. I mean, he was in the NHL, but we just didn't understand like what it really means to be world class. It's super freak. Like, how do you even do that kind of level?
I know. But gentle listener, remember, you can have a great life and be in great shape, move well, have great kids and grandkids, read good books, make a difference in your community. But not everybody's going to play center in the NBA.
And I've talked about this in the context of business even, right? So what's the business equivalent of that? Well, what net worth is the business equivalent of that? I don't know, tens of millions of dollars probably.
Well, Bill Gates was on the internet before most people had home computers because his dad was working on the internet at home. That little advantage, that's, if you grow up in a family with professional hockey players in your family, you're going to be better at hockey.
Yep.
Because your typical pass around is going to be at a higher level. Those little advantages, man, geez, they're huge.
Totally.
Yeah.
But anyways, again, great discussion. Thanks again for taking the time. And I'll think of another one if you want to do it again sometime.
Absolutely. This was fun.
Well, I hope you liked this episode. I hope you found it helpful. And if you did, subscribe to the show because it makes sure that you don't miss new episodes. And it also helps me because it increases the rankings of the show a little bit, which of course then makes it a little bit more easily found by other people who may like it just as much as you. And if you didn't like something about this episode or about the show in general, or if you have ideas or suggestions or just feedback to share, shoot me an email, mike@muscleforlife.com, muscleforlife.com, and let me know what I could do better or just what your thoughts are about maybe what you'd like to see me do in the future. I read everything myself. I'm always looking for new ideas and constructive feedback. So thanks again for listening to this episode, and I hope to hear from you soon.